You're listening to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem, your bi-weekly dose of true crime history in a small rural community of Wisconsin.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. I'm Eric.
I'm Gavin.
And we are kicking off a session of banger episode recordings, according to Gavin.
Yes.
So we're going to have to see how this ends up. But he tells me they're both bangers.
Yeah, I'm recording two bangers today. And this is the first of the two that we're recording. So this is a very special episode. And I don't mean that like it's a 1980s sitcom about, child abuse or something.
I don't know what that means, but okay.
Oh, very special episode. Well, that's whatever. Okay. So, as listeners may know, I know Eric knows, listeners may know, I have kind of this made up rule where I don't do anything more recent than 50 years ago. Just because of sensitive topics sometimes. Well, this happened 50 years ago, which means it may be the most recent thing we've ever done on this podcast.
Well, I mean, if you consider we did an episode on Charles Spanbauer, and that was pretty much more recent. Like, it started 50 years ago.
Okay, fair enough. Sometimes we do get into things that the follow-up is more recent. That's true. But, okay.
All right.
Also, just a heads up, this is an unsolved crime.
Ooh.
So, extra special. Listeners, if you're not familiar with this story and for some reason you do happen to know something, please contact your local authorities and tell them because we'd like to have this one solved. But
and keep in mind that does help because just maybe 2 months ago, we had an unsolved crime that we did on this podcast that was solved.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, not because of us.
Not at all because of us, but somebody reached out to somebody and made something happen that made it close the case. So.
Yes. So, March 1942, Bonnie Marie Newby is born. At age 15 in 1957, she marries David R. Rapinski at the Assembly of God Gospel Tabernacle in Stevens Point, Wisconsin. So Bonnie, she's married at a young age already. That's kind of might be unusual. Also, her mother's already been divorced and remarried by the time she's 15, which that's not that big of a deal. Like, I think that's happened to most of us. But in the 50s, that's kind of unusual. So her home life may be a little questionable. But her new family, like her step family, they're a good family, at least on the surface. Like they own restaurants and clubs, and her uncle owns the bar that will later become the Paradise Club.
Okay.
It's not the Paradise Club when the family owns it. Which, if listeners don't know, it was a strip club just outside of Appleton. But it was not that when the family owned it. All right, so Bonnie's new husband, David, is a lab technician in the U.S. Army Medical Corps. He's stationed at Fort Sam Houston, Texas. The wedding announcement says that Bonnie's going to go live with her mom for a while because David is going to be sent off to the Panama Canal. Not sure why she couldn't go with, but for whatever reason, she's not going with. They have some kids. They have a son, another son, and they'll have a third son a little bit later. They move to Appleton. Actually, not super far from where we are right now. The 1300 North block of Drew Street.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm not going to say where we are at this moment, but it's not that far from here.
I imagine it's got to be a little ways away from here, but yeah, you're probably right. Not too far.
I don't know. What are we at? 1400 North?
19.
Oh, that is a little farther than I thought.
Yeah.
But it's the same kind of area.
Yeah.
Okay. April 21st, 1966, Bonnie runs a red light and collides with a vehicle driven by Myra Weber at the corner of Oneida and Washington in Appleton. Her 2 sons were injured, but not enough to be hospitalized. She would plead not guilty to the charge of running the light, and the judge would later drop the charge, saying that the city couldn't prove that she ran the red light. In July 1966, Bonnie and David enter into an agreement with Clintonville Savings and Loan to get a mortgage so they can build a new home. They get the loan for $17,000 at 6.5% interest, payable over 25 years. None of this is really important. They get into some disagreements with the savings and loan company as well as the contractor, which is not really important to our story. But the reason I throw it in here is because they end up having issues paying the contractor and the savings and loan. And in the course of that, it comes out that some of the reasons that they're having trouble paying is they're having marital difficulties, and David had to move out of the house for a while.
Okay.
So,
and just because of my own curiosity, when did you say that this is happening?
1966-67 at this point.
So 67, you could buy a house for $17,000.
Yeah.
Huh. Oh, those days must have been great.
Yes. March 1969, Bonnie is driving east on County GG in Winnebago County and strikes a car driven by Clifford Zenert, who was going south on US 45. Her vehicle then swerved and hit another car driven by Douglas Hamilton. Bonnie, Douglas Hamilton, and Bonnie's 17-year-old passenger were all taken to Mercy Hospital. Her passenger is Charlene Strainen, who is either her half-sister or her stepsister. I'm not exactly sure how that works. It was hard for me to decipher exactly how they were related, but stepsister or half-sister. March 28, 1971, David, the husband, is visiting his mother in Stevens Point. While there, a long-standing family feud came up, and David was beaten by his brothers Lloyd and Delroy.
Wow.
They hit him repeatedly with a club and a chain, injuring his head and his leg with possible internal injuries. It was bad enough that David could not immediately return to work. At the preliminary hearing for battery, the brothers said they were acting in self-defense and that David's injuries were from a car accident and not from them assaulting him. Later that year, they changed their pleas to guilty when the charges were lowered to attempted battery. They were each fined $250. Now, it comes out from this, I don't know what the long-standing family feud is. Don't know. Couldn't find it. Wish I could.
Mm-hmm.
But them beating him with chains and a club
little excessive?
A little excessive, but not the worst. The more you dig into this, one of the brothers shoots another brother's dog at one point. There's tires being slashed. And at one point, with the absolute peak of this, they steal one of the brothers' trucks, drive it onto the train tracks and park it, and let a train hit it.
You've got to be kidding me.
Not at all. Not at all.
But we have no idea what this controversy is.
I don't know what the fight is about, but they really escalate this. They really escalate this. August 1971, Charlene Strainen, who is the either half-sister or stepsister of Bonnie, marries Jerry Edward Newby in Plover. This is the weird thing here, because she marries Jerry Newby, and Jerry Newby, as far as I can tell, is the half-brother of Bonnie, which makes them now not only married, but either half-siblings or step-siblings. And I'm really hoping it's step-siblings, which is still weird, but less weird.
So they're probably not related, but I mean, can you get any closer to being related without actually being blood relation? And you're not even sure they might be blood related even, right?
I tried really hard to piece this together, the timeline, because of people getting divorced and remarried and having kids and finding out whose kids were whose. And it was weird because it timed out the way that I did it, that it seemed more like they were half siblings, but that can't possibly be true. So they must be step siblings. Mm-hmm. I think they are both alive. So I don't want to judge, and I'm gonna say that I think they're step siblings. But either way, this isn't really relevant other than the fact that this is a very close family. Mm-hmm. This is Bonnie's side of the family here. April 1972. Shortly after those other two brothers paid their $250 fine for beating David goes
a little bit payback here.
Goes to a bar in Plover where he runs into a man named Leo Butler or Leo Belter. His name's written two different ways in different articles, but either way, runs into him. He knows that this guy is a delivery man for his brother Lloyd, so he sprays the man in the face with mace.
Why?
Just because he's his brother's employee. The feud has run over into random people.
Wow. Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So this is one of his brother's employees. So he's like taking vengeance on him because he works for his brother.
Yeah. Jesus, you work for my brother? I'm spraying you with mace.
This family seems a little intense.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Bonnie's living her life in Appleton. She gets in the paper frequently because she is a bowler on a league at Sabre Lanes in Appleton. So Sabre Lanes was around back in the 70s. She was often the league leader. She was a very good bowler. A January 1974 article happens to have her winning a 3-game series.
Ooh.
So, not relevant to anything, but just so people know, Bonnie is a very good bowler. By 1975, she separates from her husband at least a second time. They separated for a while during the house construction. Now they're separating again. I don't know if this is more than the second time, but second time that I know about. Mm-hmm. And so she temporarily goes to live with some family in Sheboygan while they're separated. She then comes back and lives with her sister in the town of Menasha to be a little bit closer. On August 12th, 1975, David tells police that he picked Bonnie up for her birthday, and they went to several taverns in Neenah and Oshkosh. They discussed the fact that they were probably going to get a divorce. Mm-hmm. On the way to Bonnie's sister's house, an argument broke out, and Bonnie asked to be let out of the car. She was dropped off at the corner of U.S. Highway 41 and State Highway 150, which is today the ramp by Winchester in Neenah, technically Fox Crossing, but everybody probably calls it Neenah. So Winchester or II in 41.
Okay.
She's apparently dropped off here and let out to walk back to her sister's house. After David dropped her off, no one has come forward to say that they ever saw Bonnie again. They did not see her leave the car, they did not see her walking, and she did not make it to her sister's house. One theory was that Bonnie started a new life, but this was not a popular opinion. People generally didn't think that this was realistic. She had 3 children, first of all. Very unusual. She would just abandon them. It's weird that nobody would know where she was. Her sister suspected foul play. The sheriff's department marked the crime as just a missing person. There was no body. There was no sign of violence anywhere. So they have it as a missing person. I think it's generally assumed that it's, beyond that. I think now at the 50-year mark, we can confidently say that she's quite dead. But nothing has ever turned up to actually conclusively prove that.
From what you were reading, did they look into the husband at all? I mean, did they just basically write this off as missing person, file it away, and never really do much more than that?
Well, so I don't know what they have done and they haven't done, because as an unsolved case, I mean, these records are not available.
Yeah, they're not going to give them to you.
So I have no idea what they've done as far as investigation. There's some hurdles here. So because it was a missing person and not a homicide, and now I think today they probably have it marked as, I don't know what they have it marked, probably not as a homicide specifically, but as a death they're looking into. Mm-hmm. But when it's a missing person, it's a much lower level of interest. If an adult disappears, an adult disappears. That in itself is not a crime. Mm-hmm. And so much so that if you look in the Post-Crescent for articles, you won't find any. It's not till years later that you'll find an article. There's no article the next day being where's my sister? Mm-hmm. So it completely went under the radar at the time. That is
so crazy.
Yeah.
And you would think a person goes missing, that would be more pressing because there's a reason to believe that they're alive and could need help.
Yeah. Yeah. So the problem here is, and again, now the husband, to be clear, is still alive. So far as I know, he is still alive.
Okay.
So I'm going to be really careful what I say here because I don't want him to sue me. But he was obviously the number one suspect.
Right.
And the problem is that we have it written down that the last place she was seen was at this intersection of 41 and II, and then she walked home. That's going on his word. If he is the guy,
he could have just made that up.
He could have made that up. There's no reason to think that is the place that she was dropped off or last seen. So if they scour that area looking for signs of violence, they might not find any because maybe they were never there.
Right. So
it's tough when your only witness is also your suspect.
Yeah.
So following this, the court finalized their divorce about a year later. They said, well, she's not contesting it. So they divorced. They marked it as a divorce. Yeah. Years later, rumors would come out. And this is, first of all, let me say, I don't believe this rumor. But it's interesting. I don't know if this is a thing that happens everywhere in the world. Maybe it is. But it's definitely a thing that happens in the Fox Cities. This is a Fox Cities thing for sure.
Okay.
The rumor would later be that at the time of her disappearance, the bridge around Menasha, the 441 area, was under construction.
So she's buried underneath the bridge.
So she's buried under the bridge.
Okay.
That she was put in some random pile of gravel and paved over. Mm-hmm. That's the rumor. I like that you know where that was going because there's a much more famous case, which I'm not even going to say what it is because we're not going to talk about that one on here. Mm-hmm. But there's a much more famous case from the 90s, and everybody will tell you that, oh, they're buried under 441.
Yeah.
Everybody will say it. There's no proof of that. I don't think it's true, but everybody will say it.
And that's so funny because how many bodies are buried under 441, man?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, does it make sense? Yeah, it does. But does it actually happen? I don't know. I don't know. It's weird that that's the answer. Oh, there's no body. It's under the highway somewhere. I mean, obviously that's a possibility, but it's weird that that's just where everybody jumps to.
This is an interesting story because for the simple fact of I don't even feel inclined to speculate anything with this story because there is really nothing to go on.
Right.
They have no evidence of anything happening here. All they know is that somebody went missing and was never seen again.
Correct.
And I guess we know that she was with her husband, but that's about the extent of what we know. I mean, I'm sure the government knows more, but they're just not.
They probably know more because from interviewing family members and things like that, they've probably pieced together a bit more. Also, they were apparently bar hopping earlier in the day. They probably talked to people at the bars. There are some weird things. As I said, like the dropping her off, we only know that from the one point of view. So it depends how much you believe him telling the truth.
Yeah, that's sketchy. Could be very true, could be completely false.
The other thing is that I don't know if this is an inaccuracy in the reporting or what, but the way that it's written in the newspaper is that he took her out for her birthday. They had an upcoming divorce, but he was trying to be nice, so he took her out for her birthday. The problem with that is if that's the case, this is in August and her birthday is in March. So
that's so weird.
So I don't know if that's just somebody in the news like got their information wrong or what, but it's clearly not a birthday thing. So,
did you look to see when his birthday was?
I don't know.
Could it just have gotten mixed up and be his birthday instead of her birthday?
That could be. They wrote it as her birthday, but you're right. That could be the mix-up on that. I don't know.
That's so weird.
But it is weird. Just the way that the newspaper, like I said, the newspaper didn't report it until years later. But when they finally did, I think they've got things a little off.
Mm.
So.
And the other thing I find funny is, like, we make fun of the fact that they say buried under 441.
Yeah.
But you have to ask yourself the question of, like, where else do you put a body where it just never gets discovered? Like 50 years and nobody has found any trace of this person's body.
Yeah.
I mean, that's weird, right?
It is weird. I mean, I don't know that we want to get into speculation of where you can hide bodies, but this is still a pretty heavily wooded state. I mean, there's options.
I suppose not speculating on where you could hide a body,
yeah,
but if you go hide a body in Kettle Moraine, it would probably take somebody a long time to find it if you bury it properly.
Not a recommendation. Not a recommendation. Yeah, so like I said, this is a really short one, but doing some digging on this, I wanted to piece together what I could, and again, being very careful what I say because people are still alive. There's definitely interesting pieces here. Now, there's no evidence whatsoever that the husband is at fault. If there was, they would have arrested him by now. 50 years, they would have arrested him by now. But he definitely has an interesting background. I mean, between him and his brothers constantly escalating their violence, and the marital difficulties, he's clear, like always, like rule number one of true crime is the suspect is the husband. Like that's the rule.
It's generally, isn't it considered the most obvious person?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it
is very suspect, but at the same time, again, there's not even a kernel. I mean, when you say like, well, his history with his brothers, so you could see there's violence there.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty loose.
Right.
Man. They did separate, but again, that's loose. We have no idea why they separated. We don't know if maybe she was unhappy with him. Maybe she was sleeping with a guy. You don't know. So
yes.
So it's really like there is nothing here.
Absolutely. Like if he says that he dropped her off at this intersection, it's possible. I would say it's unlikely, but it's possible that somebody else came by, offered her a ride to her destination, and that person did whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That seems very unlikely, but not impossible.
Right.
So,
and I mean, her leaving and starting a new life, that's really not even impossible.
It's not impossible, but I would say extremely unlikely.
Just because at this point somebody would have came forward with something.
Well, because she has the 3 children, I think that's not that doesn't happen, but that makes it unusual to me. But also, how long can you? I'm thinking, unless you're really good. I mean, there's people who can do that. There's people who can disappear, but unless you're really good at it, like sooner or later, you're going to have to apply for a credit card. You're going to have to do something where you're going to have to run your social security number and stuff like that. Like, you can't just create a new identity from scratch unless you're, there's people who can,
mm-hmm.
but they're very crafty people.
This is true, but at the same time, you go someplace else, you get married, you let the husband do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You might be able to squeeze it out for a while at least.
Okay, well, I'll entertain the fact that it's possible.
Yeah.
I don't happen to think that's the likely scenario here, but it is possible.
I would say something definitely did happen, but yeah, it's one of these things we're sitting here speculating, and once again, you can't really speculate because there is really no evidence here.
No, so I want to kind of wrap this up. I've got 3 things I want to do to wrap this up.
Okay.
Unless if you got something, we'll do your thing first.
Well, the only other thing I would like to discuss is do you think, have we ever had another episode on this podcast that is this lacking of evidence?
No, I don't think so.
Because this one's crazy to me because I'm trying to go somewhere and there's just nothing there.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. But okay. What are your 3 things? Sorry.
That's okay. So the 3 things are this. 1, if you know something, or even if you think you know something, please tell somebody.
We aren't the right people to tell.
Yeah, I mean, don't tell us. I mean, if you want to, you can, but don't tell us. Tell, the authorities. It's possible that somebody is still out there who can be charged, and even if they're not alive to be charged, if they could find her, they'd probably appreciate that. So, first of all, do that. Second, I'm going to do something that I don't think I've ever done on this podcast before, and I'm going to ask law enforcement. I'm going to say, can you tell us something more here? I respect the ongoing investigation thing, and I get it. I'm very sympathetic to that. But I would hope at the 50-year mark, maybe you could let out a little bits of pieces here and there about things, again, don't tell us, but, tell the Post-Crescent or somebody. And sometimes, this is how these things work, is the police want to keep things as tight as they can, for very good reason. Because, you want somebody to say something and then slip up and say something that they're not supposed to know.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. That's a really good tactic. But you have the reverse side of that, too, where sometimes there's something the police know that is that one thing that can jog someone's memory.
Exactly.
So if there's something you can let out without giving it away, please, give us a little bit more to work with here, at least so we can get some sense of what happened earlier in that day. Bar hopping is so vague. There must be a pretty good timeline laid out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say that.
And it would just be interesting to, get a better perception of what the husband was like at this point in time. Did people feel like he could possibly have done this, or would anybody that
we're going to be careful about that? Because we don't want to get sued.
Well, I suppose, but it's not my opinion. It's other people's opinion. You know,
I have no opinion of him one way or the other.
Yeah.
I've never met the guy.
Based on the story, there's nothing there.
I'm just
we
reporting
can't make
what
a judge.
Yeah,
we can't make a judge.
Anything that I've said was what was publicly written in the newspaper. So I'm not. This is not my opinion. This is just what I'm. What is written. But so yeah, I mean, I guess there's that as well. It would. I don't think they would release that, but it would be cool to see if they could release more of like that interview and get some idea of what he was telling them at the time. That's true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The third thing is our next episode is going to be a double homicide, and it's related to this case.
Interesting. So now I'm curious, is the double homicide also unsolved?
No, that one is solved.
Okay. So maybe this next episode might shed some light onto this case, or is it connected?
It might make it more murky.
I'm thinking that's what's probably going to happen then.
It's. I will tell you that somebody that was in this episode is a murder suspect in the next episode.
Interesting.
And it is a solved double murder.
Oh, God. Now I wish we were doing the other episode today.
Yeah, I got you good.
And just so everybody knows, I get to go to Guatemala after this week. So we're not going to record that episode for 3 weeks, which I guess it doesn't matter because I'm not going to remember by the time we get back.
Yeah.
So it'll be good.
You got to go to Guatemala.
So, well, if anything, I mean, this episode may be kind of slightly disappointing because there just isn't a whole lot to it.
Yeah.
But it does really, really build up for the next episode and see
exactly
where are we going from here.
Exactly. So I wanted to do it because it was the 50-year mark of this disappearance, and our piddly little podcast. I was like, any more awareness you can bring to a missing persons case, or an unsolved murder, whatever you want to call it, I think is a good thing. So do our part, get the information out there. But yeah, in the course of it, finding out that there's some related things, I was like, okay, to be very clear, I don't think the next episode is going to solve where Bonnie is. So I don't think they're related in that way. But the network of people involved turns out to be more interesting than it first appears.
Wow, I can't wait to hear this next episode. It's going to be amazing. So I think.
Yeah.
So... all right, well, I guess we're going to have to just live with that suspense. Do you have anything else for this episode?
I do not. There's things that I wish I could say, but I won't say them on the air because they're about living people. But there are other things that I think are interesting, but probably not directly related to the story. So I'm not going to bring them up.
Interesting. So, you also did mention if you know anything to reach out to somebody. Do you know, would this fall under City of Neenah Police Department, Winnebago County?
This is Winnebago County.
So if you do know anything, reach out to the Winnebago County Sheriff's Department or whatever.
Yeah, reach out to Winnebago County Sheriff's Department. I don't have that phone number in front of me, but I'm sure you can easily find it. Yeah. Yeah, definitely reach out to them, let them know, or even just. I mean, I wouldn't do this personally, but even, maybe just let them know this is something that we're interested in. We as a society are interested in, keep them looking at it.
Refresh their minds.
Yeah, say, hey, could somebody just take an afternoon and reread the file for a moment? So I don't know.
Or maybe release it to somebody who's willing to read the file.
Whatever. I'm just saying, I don't think Bonnie's going to be found, not alive. I don't think Bonnie's going to be found alive at this point. But there's definitely some closure that can be had yet. So,
and I do find it weird that we have never had, because we've had plenty of unsolved cases. We never had any case that has so little.
I agree.
That we know so little about, which is just weird to me.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So it makes me think that there's a lot more out there. We just don't know it at this point.
Probably.
So, all right, with that, we can wrap this podcast up. We want to thank everybody for their continued support. We will be back in 2 weeks with another episode. Thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Fox City's Murder and Mayhem. Join us in 2 weeks for another exciting episode of Murder and Mayhem.